Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? I want to touch on a couple different topics when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers. One has to do with Ben Simmons in the All-Star game. The other has to do with Joel Embiid and the Players Tribune article that came out, and his new shoe deal, if you want to throw that in there, and Markelle Fultz, because I think it's interesting. He just had a triple-double against the Lakers on the road, against LeBron James, right? It's an interesting conversation without a doubt. So I want to touch on those three topics. But before we do real quickly, I got to let you know about the promo code BROADS that you can use at SeatGeek's checkout page for $20 off. You can buy tickets to go to a game and get free parking, free beer. It's a no-brainer to use the promo code BROADS today. Now, we'll start with Ben Simmons because I heard this discussion around the city, and I just find it so different. Because normally, when you have someone playing in your city, you want them to succeed. You want them to be an all-star. You want them to be recognized by the league. Well, with Ben Simmons, we are so irritated and frustrated with the thing that he doesn't do that is so crucial in the sport of basketball that I feel as if this fan base doesn't want him to be an all-star because he will be pissed off about it. It will bother him. He will be annoyed. And we are hoping that he gets so hurt inside that it will change his game and it will change his mindset. Ben Simmons, not an all-star? What? Huh? What? How is he going to feel when he looks himself in the mirror if he is not an all-star? Do you think he's going to change his game? Do you think he's going to process things and say, well, hold on, why am I not an all-star? What do I have to do? Now, maybe this is wishful thinking by me. Maybe I'm falling into the trap thinking something so small like not making an all-star game would actually change the mindset of Ben Simmons when it comes to shooting. Because let's be real, he's been told to shoot by 5 million different people throughout his career. Why would this be the difference? And I guess that I'm talking myself off the ledge here. I'm realizing that, come on, bros, that's silly to think an all-star game would be the difference in Ben Simmons shooting or not. But it can't hurt, right? It can't hurt for him not to make the all-star game. I'm rooting for him not to. I really am, because I think maybe he will be humbled. Because I think he will have to readdress his game and think, well, why am I not an all-star? Or he will be so mentally focused to prove everyone wrong, he still plays the same way, but he has that extra attitude about it. He plays with that extra swagger, that mean mug type of game. I just find it so weird and odd that we have a player in this city that is unbelievable at defense. He is so good when it comes to steals. He's at the top of the league in assists. But we don't want him to be an all-star. Now maybe it was a loud minority that I heard. But I'm in the same boat as them. I don't want him to make the all-star game. I want him to feel the pain because I know that Ben takes pride and things like that. And of course that he's all over social media and he's building his case and he's telling people to vote and all the players are doing that and they all want to make the All-Star game. But I know Ben Simmons takes pride in that. Remember when he was asked by one of the media members about his shooting and he said, I'm an all-star, right? Something of that nature. He made it clear, whoa, I'm an all-star, right? Talking about the jump shot and the lack thereof. So it means a lot to him. I think he needs something like this to show him, Ben, you're great. No doubt about it. But you're missing something in your game, dude. And it needs to change. Now, with the way the All-Star game is these days, with the Twitter voting, it's just a popularity contest anyway, which I think is a flat-out joke. There should be no reason why the fans vote on the All-Stars. It should be based off of production and what you do on the floor. It's just about who likes the players most. Well, that's not how it should be. It should be about who's the best on the floor. Who are the top talented players in the game. Now, to be fair, it normally ends that way. The best players in the game are normally the most liked and who has the biggest following. But you know what I'm saying. The popularity contest thing is not how this should be played out. But going back to Ben Simmons, I think it would be good for him not to make it. And I'm a big-time Ben Simmons believer. I just find it funny that it's almost as if there's only two options. Ben Simmons lover to the extreme, or trade him, get out of here, he'll never shoot, he's the worst, he's awful. Well, that's not true. Because I think he does so many phenomenal things on the basketball floor. And I can see him being a special talent in specific games. And I know that he has flaws that irritate the living hell out of me. So I'm not trading him. I think he's a fantastic basketball player who can be very special in this league, but I'm irritated with what he doesn't do. And I'm so irritated by what he doesn't do that I think the best thing for him would be to not make the All-Star game so he can feel the pain, so he can be disgusted. Just Joel Embiid? Just Joel Embiid on the Sixers make the All-Star game? You know that's going to eat him alive. He uses that to back up and support his game. He does it all the time. Him being an all-star without the jump shot, he uses that to support not shooting the basketball. I'm just praying something so little and realistically so stupid could piss him off so much that he uses it to his advantage. And here's the thing. If it doesn't, okay, but it won't hurt him. If he doesn't make it, it won't hurt him. If he makes it, all right. But you're not going to have that edge because he's going to feel comfortable with the style of his game, knowing that he's an all-star without changing what he does. And that's how I see it. But it's so weird because every time you have a player who is willing to be in the all-star conversation, you want him in the all-star game. That's any team, any city, any sport. But not right now. Not with this guy and everything he has put us through with the mind-blowing non-shooting saga. It's a very unique thing. Moving on to Joel Embiid in the Players Tribune article, I thought it was a really solid read. So if you did not read it yet, I will throw it out there. You should. You absolutely should after you're done listening to this, of course. But he goes on to tell his story about how he went to that Lukumba Mute camp that happened in his hometown area, and he skipped the first day. He skipped the first day to play video games and to play FIFA with his brother. And think about that. Really, think about if he didn't end up going to the other days of that camp. He wouldn't be the person he is today. He wouldn't have fallen in love with the game of basketball and been this multi-millionaire, big superstar type player. But he ended up going, obviously, but it's just so crazy to think he was that close of not being who he is today. But the story goes on to talk about his brother and how much his brother meant to Embiid. And sadly, there was a tragic event where his brother passed away, and he tells his story about how much that his brother meant to him, and it's definitely touching, no doubt about it. But when we get to the basketball side of things in that article, I thought there was some funny, but maybe not so funny, things that he mentioned in terms of how he likes to play the game. And he praised Shaq and praised Charles Barkley for helping him and saying all those things to him after that post game where he acknowledged that he could drop 35 points a game and dominate the league. But he said, this is 2020. I know what Shaq did. I know what these big guys did back in the day, Dream. This is 2020. And the one line that stood out to me the most is my favorite players to watch right now is James Harden, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. Oh, just what every Sixers fan wants to hear, that Joel Embiid is watching these type of players. Now, listen, when I see Joel Embiid and I see him put the ball on the floor, dribbling and trying to put moves behind his back and he turns it over, now all I'm thinking about is, oh, well, you got to stop watching those type of highlights. I do agree with him that it's 2020 when all the fans scream, get him in the low block, get him in the post. Well, he does lead the league in post ups, and it is 2020. He's allowed to take three-pointers. He's allowed to be a big man that spreads the floor. That's how basketball is played these days. But at the same time, you can't be a 7-footer trying to dribble like James Harden and whatnot. You can take elements out of his game, maybe a Euro step or things of that nature, but I don't want to see him putting the ball on the floor trying to make these moves, and he definitely does that sometimes. Now I'm trying to process all those plays that I get pissed off with Joel Embiid, and whoa, was he trying to be like Kevin Durant there? Or whoa, what's he doing over here? That looks like a guard or some sort of ball handler in this league right now. So I love the article, and like I said, you definitely have to read it if you have not already. But that line stood out to me. Come on, Joel, I'm with you. It's a new style of basketball, and you are allowed to do a lot more as a 7-footer. Yes, I am in for it. And you are very versatile in that. You can Euro step, you can post up, you can knock down the three, you have a good mid-range J. I just think you need to think about it fully in certain situations. Putting the ball on the floor, not your strongest suit. Don't do that because James Harden or Kevin Durant does it, right? And speaking of that, though, speaking of Joel Embiid, I read the Athletic article about their half-point grades since we are at the midpoint of the season. One of the things that's praised, and it shows the analytical breakdown, is his passing out of the post and his passing out of the double team. And when you see the numbers from when he first got in the league, and you can see the numbers year by year by year, wow. I mean, I know it's frustrating at times this season, and you have seen him struggle this season because the passes aren't perfect. But when you look at the analytical breakdown and the percentage of passes that he's really connecting on outside of those double teams and outside of the post, he has made a significant jump throughout his career. It's crazy to think about maybe where it was back then, if now there are still moments where we cringe and say, Joel, what are you doing? What was it like 2 or 3 years ago? It was probably so abysmal. I just can't remember it off the top of my head because he has transformed so much over the years. And also turnovers in general. Brett Brown's biggest flaw as a coach, one of Brett Brown's biggest flaws as a coach, was the turnover numbers. There has been a big separation so far this year. Once it hit a certain point where we really dialed in on those turnovers, it has been different. Absolutely, it's been different. Now, the Athletic goes on to say the turnovers have stopped. They are nowhere near the 20s every game. It has definitely went down, but you can look at the possessions based off of those turnovers, and you can argue or look at the fact that maybe they're not getting the best looks, but the turnovers are going down. So they're saying it's possible. The record is still being written here. The answer is still being written. Just because the turnovers are going down, it doesn't mean they're getting the best offensive looks based off of that. But I thought that was a really unique article on The Athletic written by Derek Bodner. The Joel Embiid thing, I was cracking the hell up when I saw that James Harden line and the Kevin Durant line. But he also went on to talk about that Game 7 loss and how emotional it was. And he praised the fan base for really supporting him at the end of the day, for being through so many injuries, for his story to be very unique, and for his path to be very unique to where he is now. He just praised the city of Philadelphia, and he clearly wants to win a championship for this city. He talked about that emotion after Game 7. He said he never felt that way before on the basketball floor, and he wanted to do it so badly for the city and for his family that when he saw that Kawhi Leonard bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce, he couldn't help it. It just poured out of him. It's crazy to think about. You know, I was upset as a fan, obviously. Very, very disappointed and heartbroken at the time. I couldn't imagine being a player in that moment. Throughout my hockey career, I had some heartbreaking losses. Specifically, I remember when I was playing U18 AAA, we were in the national semifinals, quarterfinal round. And that's a big deal. It absolutely is. and we were down, was it 4-1 in the third period? We came back to tie it 4-4, and we lost in overtime, which would have sent us to the semifinals of Nationals. So I've been there. It is a gut-wrenching feeling. I guess my U18 AAA National run doesn't compare to Game 7 of an NBA playoff journey, but in regards to how it felt to me, absolutely it was just important. I could only imagine what it's like to be on that type of stage and to have something ripped right out underneath you like that after putting up an interesting run, to say the least. All right, so the last thing I wanted to touch on. Markelle Fultz. Markelle Fultz has had a better season this year in Orlando. You're seeing his athleticism, and yeah, I absolutely see it. But this whole narrative of, oh, we should have kept Markelle Fultz. Oh, we screwed up. Here's the thing, and this is my personal opinion on it. Him going to Orlando was needed. Not everyone is made out for a Philadelphia market, a big East Coast city, and with where he was when he first got here at a very, very young age, the pressure got to him, the playoff hopes, the playoff runs instantly. It was a lot for him to handle, and then the added pressure to it that, oh, we forgot how to shoot, and the injury/non-injury, and I'm a believer that it was a non-injury, but, that's just my personal opinion. I don't think that there was an injury involved. I think everything was a mental block here in Philadelphia. But there's something to be said about him going to a market that has no pressure. The fan base is not the same. You're not trying to win a championship as soon as you get thrown into the NBA. He just gets to go out there and play basketball. And it's a different mindset when you get to do that. You can't do that here. When you have Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, the city is on fire because the process is finally over. Let's go on championship runs. And you start out the way Markelle Fultz did, it's a tough spot to be in. So I give him props for what he's doing. That triple-double against LeBron James, he had some really great moves in there. He was going with LeBron. He pushed him out of the way. He had a layup. Markelle Fultz is having himself a nice, solid start to this season in Orlando. But that wouldn't happen here. I don't believe that would have happened here. The fact that he got moved away, that's why he's in the mindset that he's in right now. And I don't like this narrative of, well, we traded him just for Jonathan Simmons. No, that's not what happened. There's a first-round pick involved, which is protected, but there's a first-round pick involved, and the cap. The cap. He was crushing this team with the cap, and with Elton Brand making some moves and going out for Tobias, making that trade, and the Al Horford thing, which seemed at this very moment to be something that is struggling, Markelle Fultz would have never really fit unless you took away some of your bench pieces, I guess. Listen, the cap was a problem. Him in Philadelphia was a problem. It was a distraction. I also hate this narrative that we were so brutal to him. Were there fans that were brutal to Markelle Fultz? Absolutely. Am I one of them? I'm not going to say I'm one of them. I'm in the middle. I'm definitely not a supporter. I'm not a hater either. I'm just in the middle. But to say we were this horrendous fan base to him is just not true. We gave him standing ovations for making a jump shot. I mean, we do the same thing for Ben Simmons right now, but we gave him a standing ovation making a jump shot. We gave him standing ovations for just getting out on the floor. We supported him for as long as we could before we realized, hey, maybe it's just not going to work here. And I knew that Markelle Fultz was very young, so to give up on him so young is a conversation that's going to be had. But with where the Sixers were at that time, they thought it was ready to go now mode, and they sped some things up by making some moves, and Markelle Fultz was one of those moves. To say he would be doing what he's doing in Orlando right now in Philadelphia, I can't say that is true. I'm a big believer in what he's doing now, and what he does in his career is because he got out of Philadelphia. Not everyone is made for this market. He's still not a good shooter. He's a willing shooter, no doubt about it. He's a willing shooter. He's not a good shooter, though. And you still see the hitch in his shot. You see the same exact thing. But the Markelle Fultz supporters will say, well, listen, you're being very lenient with Ben Simmons. How come you weren't lenient with Markelle Fultz? the impact Ben Simmons makes is different. It's just different. Ben Simmons has the potential to be special. Special. I don't think Markelle Fultz will be special. Not many players can be. That's not a knock on Markelle Fultz. If that was the case, if that was a knock on people, it would be a knock on 99% of the league. It's not a knock. But I think Ben Simmons has the potential to be special. Most people aren't willing to be lenient on players that don't have that as their ceiling. And that's my thoughts on it. So, there you have it. You have 3 topics. Ben Simmons in the All-Star game, which just cracks me up. It really does. We have a guy that can be an all-star. We have a guy that can be at the top of the league, but we don't want him to be. We don't want him to be recognized right now because we know deep down that will eat him alive. And we want him to feel that. We want him to know, yo, Ben, you're good. You need more, though. You have the ability to add more, though, and that's why it kills us inside. Also, Joel Embiid's Player Tribune article, his dribbling, the dribbling like James Harden, the Kevin Durant stuff, the Steph Curry. Oh, man. I know they're your favorite to watch, Joel, but that might not be the best way to approach things. I'm all for big men being able to do different things in this league nowadays. I know it's not Shaq. I know it's not a dominating force in the paint, just abusing players left and right. I do think that Joel can do that, though. Like, if there's one thing Joel doesn't do enough, it's that. It's back down, dunk on people, dominate with the big broad body frame that he has. He uses it to get to his advantage, and he uses his footwork to get to the glass, or he'll take that hook, or he'll do that short jimmy or that mid-range jimmy. He'll do all that, but he doesn't do Shaq-like dominance much. That is one thing I would like for him to do. So hell, maybe start watching Shaq. All right, I'm all for adding things to your repertoire, but maybe watch Shaq. But you have that as a topic, and you also had the Markelle Fultz saga. That will not end, and it will not finish. And now every time he does something, it will be tied back to, oh, look what you did, Philly. Look what you did, Sixers. Well, can we take a step back and go back and figure out this situation here and how it played out and what it played out for? This was the situation. They decided to move on. You can argue that they decided to move on too early and push the playoff runs and push the win now championship mode too early. You can argue that. But it wasn't just, hey, we're done with you, screw you. There were reasons why this all occurred. How he's playing now is nowhere close to how he was playing in Philadelphia, based off of, and in my opinion, a mental block, not an injury. And moving to Orlando was a big reason on why he's playing the way that he's playing. So with that being said, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, comment down below your thoughts and opinions, and I will see you next time.